Hello, everyone. Welcome again. We have a beautiful conversation ahead of us today. If you haven't seen me before, my name is Kim Lyday. I am a holistic healing coach and a music therapist. And today is happens to be Halloween on the day of this recording in the beautiful month of October. And our theme for today is let go and let God. So I know at least here in the US we talk about Halloween with tricks and treats and playing that game together, but today I thought that, we don't need all the tricks. Let's just receive the treats today. Let's just bask in the receptivity that we are given from God, source, the universe, whatever it is you call it. It's all good here. We all love all of you. It's great. So today we're going to prepare to receive blessings and see what comes from the freedom of just letting go and letting source direct the way. So I'm going to let Judith take it away. Grandmother Judith, she's been leading our calls for this past year, and it's going to be a beautiful call. So listen in.
Well, thank you so much, Kim, and thank you all for being with us here today. And for those that might want to listen into this theme in the call in future weeks or months, I am blessed to be living in the wonderful country that I just heard from Isabel, that she comes from, the country of Canada. And I am blessed to live on the Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, that is the sacred heart of the First Nations people here, in the democracy of Canada, in the watershed of Ottawa-Gatineau. And I am very blessed today to have a wonderful way of inviting you all to begin to awaken to the significance of these times in which we're living in. And in life, there is no accidents. We're all called in these times to lighten up, and in the theme, let go and let God. And a lot of that is about getting out of our own way and beginning to listen more deeply to our hearts that call us to just be somewhere, someplace, we don't know why, but we know we're meant to be there. And when we go, sometimes we meet the most important person that we'll ever meet, because they're mirrors of ourselves, of all the goodness that's flowing in all of us, despite this past year of continued great tribulations of a planet going through great change, as are all the citizens of Mother Earth. So I really would like to inspire you all that are listening today around the theme, let go and let God. It's simply letting go of our own fragile egos or the trauma that we've all been going through, and lightening up in a good way to begin to meet each other and see that whatever I see in another person will be but a mirror of myself. And I know I'd like to just share before I go continue. I work in the ministry of listening. And as a grandmother, I've been listening for many, many years and doing the hard work of going to inside to know myself, to be true to myself. And that to me is a continuous lifelong journey of really learning to learn, to love and honor thyself, so you can be a good neighbor and a good friend and a good example to the younger generation. So may you all have your light glow, and may your mind open today as you listen to these other beautiful holistic people on this call who believe in a better world coming through all of our hearts. So I'm going to pass it on and introduce Joey, who is another wonderful part of this team, where we've been helping ourselves to have these sacred conversations and inviting all others to connect with us and let this beautiful energy grow. So Joey, would you like to say a few words and let us know what you've been up to the last few months and who you are?
Yeah, it's good to be with you all again. So I'm Joey. I'm an emotional healing practitioner. I help my clients to reconnect with their bodies, to become best friends with their bodies through the avenue of resolving past traumas, current stresses, and therefore being able to change your future self through the work that the body naturally knows how to self-regulate any type of emotional difficulty. This last month has been a practice for that for me very intensely. For family as well as friends that we choose to be our family, and having some difficult situations in their lives that I've been a part of, and kind of seeing the spooky ways in which relationships, just as Judith said, can reflect things back to us, both good and both bad. But either way, it's let go and let God. So I think it's a perfect theme for today, and lovely to be on the call with you all today.
Well, thank you so much, Joey. I call it yin and yanging around.
That's a good way. I like that.
And
Honestly, one thing you've also taught me that has been in the forefront of my mind over and over again over the last couple of months is going through these difficulties that have been months now, different people, different ways. What you've taught me the most for sure that I've been placing into this is that everyone is our teacher. And so even I think in my old mindset, it would be easy for me to like villainize these people that are causing these disturbances in the relationships, and then therefore victimize myself for being part of that. And so your platform there and teaching me that from the native wisdom traditions of seeing that even our most difficult relationships are often our best teachers. And so it's allowed me to kind of more open myself to that possibility and let go and let God in an easier way than I used to be able to. So thank you for that. And yin and yanging around, that's the next one.
Well, I've been doing a lot of the yin and yanging around, as you folks know, in the last year, because when you're going through deep grief, the loss of anything really important, you do the deeper work. And so, Rob, you've been doing the deeper work. We have been on a journey, and I'm still doing the deep work. And one of the things that Indigenous people have taught me is the deeper you go, the more you can have empathy and understanding for other humans going through great change. So that's why we have to do that deeper work. And it can be very uncomfortable, but we have to go through it in a good way to support each other in this great transitional time on the planet. We are all going through different kinds of change. And in every change, we will be experiencing grief and loss. And I think the human family has to begin to come together as one family now, to unite our minds and hearts, to walk and work together, and begin to live in a better way of supporting our neighbor as ourselves, because we're but reflections of each other. And the mirror that we see in each other, their greatest teachers are to help us see that we also have pain, and we have to stop running away from the pain so it can become the compassion of care, love, and understanding. So, Rob, you've been on a journey since a young man of daring to matter. And I've always witnessed people of vision, because they're the ones we need, because they can see the bigger picture. And many of us can't see the bigger picture, but many of us are blessed to come into the world different. And something in our hearts tells us at an early age, we have to do something. And I think that's why we're all here today. Something in us is driving us forward to a new way and a new wave happening on the planet, to connect with that energy calling us. So Rob, tell us a little bit about who you are and what happened to you as a young man that dared you to write a poem called Dare to Matter.
What happened to me as a child? Well, I had a great mother and a great father who taught me some great ideas and principles of living, as well as good family. And we were blessed to be, as you all might know, my dad was a foreign affairs communications officer. So we were living overseas a lot. I was born in Tanzania, raised in Turkey, France, Belgium, and Greece. So we learned a lot of different cultures and different ways of doing things. So what I saw when I came back to Canada was a very selfish society when I first got back here, very me-oriented. And having lived the European model of experience, where even the most socially conservative politician, for instance, believes in truly universal healthcare, pharmacare, dental care, mental care, spiritual care, living wages for, every worker. Whereas here in our North American society, we have our most essential workers basically going to food banks and having to struggle just to pay their bills. I saw something intrinsically wrong with our society even back in the 1980s. So to me, it's all about the love. And Mom, you said we're going through a grieving process, and without great love, there is no grief. So that's the good news, is that you have to have a lot of love to have the grief. So it's a double-edged sword, and we as people, we have to our own selves be true. And I think in our society, we've gotten away from discovering who we really are. We discover a lot of there's this old saying that I heard back in business school, which I really never really liked. It was called "fake it until you make it." And I always kind of found it counterintuitive, because when you're faking it, you're not being real to yourself or the people around you. And as a result, a lot of people are going, in debt in many ways, whether it be financially, spiritually, emotionally, in their relationships, because they're trying to fake it until they make it. And really, you've got to be authentic, I think, to yourself in order to make it in this world, truly. And that's where I think we as a society have got to get back to the basics of, being authentic to ourselves and to our community and to our relationships. And as a result, we'll have a much better way of living, I think, going forward. And it goes back to those First Nations traditions that Mom was talking about. Most of the First Nations that I meet, a lot of them are struggling, but a lot of them that have found their spiritual path are truly authentic and graceful in their existence. And those are the models that we really have to follow, and that I try to emulate and put forward in this world.
Well, gee, make wish, my son. Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it spoke to all our hearts, because we're all part of the same human family. We've been going through the drama of life the best way we know how. But our society doesn't help us do the work that really needs to be done, and that is to grieve our losses and our changes, and to be able to rise up and live a better way of life in a new world that's helping us to see each other in new, different ways. So, Kim, the work that you're doing as a holistic teacher kind of mirrors what Rob is talking about and what Joey's talking about and what I'm talking about. And I'm sure Isabel is resonating today, and many others, that we all have a journey right now, and it's not an easy journey. It's a labor of birth. And I often say to people, giving birth to the new is grunt work. It is hard work. But boy, are we blessed when we bear fruit, great fruit of beautiful children and beautiful grandchildren, and the new future that's emerging as we keep believing in the best in ourselves. So this is Halloween. And speaking of children, they remind us to lighten up and have fun and trick or treat. And Kim, you have a beautiful young one at home. Tell us a little bit, as you as a mom, and having this beautiful little girl you're going to go trick or treating with through, I'm sure in the United States, it's a big deal, and it's becoming even bigger in Canada.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's 5. So she's super excited. She's at that age where just everything is full of wonder and joy, and she understands the concept of trick or treating now. The past couple of years we couldn't get her to say trick or treat as she went to each door, but the past couple days now we've been practicing at different events, and she's got it down. She's ready for that candy. And there's so much.
Well,
Yeah.
interesting. It's kind of like we let go and let God. And the more the mother models and the child listens, we become able to do what we didn't think we could do the day before. So the children are great teachers for us to lighten up and have some more fun. And in the process, so does mom.
That couldn't be more true. I mean, I realize more and more as I watch her grow and as we interact together, because she's our first child. I watch how she really does teach me, I think, more than I teach her. Because she does. She teaches me those lessons in fun and kind of going with the flow. And there have been, this past year, there have been a lot of challenges that we've walked through as a family. And as Joey was talking and you guys were talking, those memories were kind of popping up for me about, wow, like how we have navigated through grief of our own. I think the hardest thing for me as a mom this year was back in the beginning, like the spring, I think, of this year. um we had a situation with our daughter's babysitter where she was very, very, very over involved and not really respecting our boundaries, as like, we're the parents, we get to make the decisions for her. um and this person, I knew she loved her with all her heart and soul, like that's why she cared so much. But it got to the point where she disagreed with us so much, she ended up saying some things, and we got reported to Childline. And I was like, what? I was completely like, what? How is this even, like, come on. So, we went through that process and had that home visit, and everything is fine, of course. But that we had to make that decision to say, okay, we need to have this boundary. We need to cut ties at this point, because it's past the point of being inappropriate now. It, like, we can't have this relationship any longer. So that was really hard. And there was grief in that, because I knew that it was out of love. I knew she didn't mean to hurt us.
Mhm.
And I knew that my daughter loved her too. Like, there was like emotions all around. All of us were impacted by that. And my daughter is so resilient. Like, she was just like, okay, well, we're gonna go play somewhere else now. And going to different places, and she was just like, all right. It seemed like it felt so natural for her. And I find myself, I'm still thinking about it from time to time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder how she's doing. I wonder if she's okay. Like, because I get to take that message of just letting go and letting God like handle the situation, and releasing myself as well. But yeah, it's hard for adults. It's hard for adults to do that. Children got it down. Like, we can just follow their lead, and they will teach us how to do it.
They get on with playing with a new playmate.
Exactly. Exactly.
That we have a tendency to hold on to. Yeah, and it's very interesting, because when we think, we all come into the world the same way as little children, pure love and light, pure energy. We don't have inhibitions, we don't have judgments, but we become more fragile as we grow older, because we are always more sensitive. And anytime we're hurt, we lose touch with the core of our inner child within. And we build all these layers and protections. And that's the challenge in life and being in human relationships. We all mean well, but sometimes the people we love the most, we hurt the most. And sometimes, I must say, as a mother, I'm so proud of our kids, because our kids, like any kid, all you want is the best for our children. And it's so nice to hear Rob talk to affirm that I didn't do half a good job. I did a pretty damn good job, excuse the English, of raising kids in 6 cultures. So it's always a learning. You never know how your kids see you, and you never know how other people see you. And your friend meant the best. But sometimes when we're meaning the best, we hurt the ones we love the most. And sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. And Joey and I were just talking today about boundaries. So Joey, with all the beautiful work you do in helping people through trauma, and he's been a great help to me in the last few months because of trauma. I'm one of these people, I just like to get along with everyone. But sometimes people have issues and we don't even know they have them until they start projecting them. And then there's an issue. Whatever it is I'm portraying to them is disturbing them. And sometimes we don't know how to communicate. And so when we get better at letting go and letting God, we can trust that this experience, as Joey was saying, the experiences we're having that are forcing us to do our own deeper work are the ones that really wake us up to the best inside ourselves. But again, that's a labor of birth. It isn't about laboring a birth of a new child. It's laboring our own beautiful child back into being real again. So Joey, the work you're doing in helping people through pain and trauma is very significant, as is the work Kim is doing in being a holistic teacher to embrace the 4 directions: the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual. When I'm effective with one being out of alignment, it will affect the others. So we're all in this beautiful medicine wheel, and we're going around in different times of our own lives right now to experience healing. And healing is a wonderful way by which we connect the dots of Humpty Dumpty being put back together again. Because when we're traumatized, we lose little pieces of our essence, our real selves. So Joey, speak to the trauma of how you're helping people. And like today, we're affirming we need to create boundaries. We will get red flags around people meaning well, but sometimes we have to create stronger boundaries. So Joey, would you speak to that, please?
Yeah, definitely. Kim, I loved your story on that. I think it's funny that often we see little children as being really fragile because they're new to this world, when often they're actually more anti-fragile than we are as adults. Just like Judith was saying, we almost become more fragile as we become older. And it's kind of pointing to exactly that situation you said. It's like for your daughter, it was so easy to be like, oh, we're just moving to the next thing. Let's go play and have fun. And she could easily resolve any of the difficulties that were happening. And it was like it didn't even happen almost. And so that's essentially what I teach adults mostly, or young teenagers, how to do, is to go back to what our body already knows how to do when we were children, when we knew less of these smart human things. Our body naturally, we knew to allow our body to take in information, resolve those stresses, and then go back to being content and living life again. But for some reason, our culture has kind of pulled us away from that. And we try to analyze everything and hold on to stuff and act like we forgot it, but really it's still there. And the body keeps a score in the way. And so I think that's what it comes back to, is that our body is speaking to us in the present moment all the time, with yeses and nos. And when we're in relationships with people, sometimes that boundary is actually speaking to us. We feel some type of internal stress, some tension inside of us when we're in these difficult relationships, and it's up to us to resolve that and determine what that information means, so that we can make proper boundaries. The more I dive into it and the more I work with people to start to go into these places we don't talk about very much, or we don't know how to put words to, it takes a lot of effort to put words to it. I find that more and more of us actually have these situations occur in our life and we really just aren't aware of them. We're not always aware when our body is telling us yes and no, in different situations and relationships. So I think it's very it's worth the time and effort to put our attention inwards and to listen to our body more often, to see how it is speaking to us about boundaries we're either expressing or not. And it takes work. And I think that's also another fallacy that our culture kind of teaches us, is that, you know, in our economies, money can be printed out of thin air. It's almost like we don't believe that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything requires work and effort. It's kind of the law of thermodynamics. Like, it's in our physics that it requires work to do things. And so this is one of those things, is it takes work, and it also feels good once we know we've put the work in. There's been proof of that work, and then we receive the feedback of changes, positive changes in our life because of that work. So I think that's another kind of piece to switch in our mind sometimes, that work is a good thing. It feels good to work, and it feels good to reap the benefits of that work. And it's beneficial for everybody in that sense as well.
Kind of like, if we look at it in a language of a labor of love, and energy is in our thoughts and our words. And so as I look at working hard as a labor of love to create a life fully worth living, the language of my soul as a 78-year-old elder is, I'm going to live a long life. And it's a labor of love because I'm learning to actually care for my body, my mind, my spirit. And my soul is urging me on, because the planet needs the elders to stay here a long time. The young ones need to have hope based on what the elders have seen in their own lives from life experience and life events. And so when I'm beginning to understand that the power of thought and the power of prayer, it's energy. It's how I think, how I express it. I'm the creator of my own life. So the labor of love that we're talking about here in words will turn into actions, because as we begin to see that our neighbors and our other people in our lives are our greatest teachers of what we need to see in ourselves that we cannot see, but we can only see it through each other. And we're kind of mirror on the wall. Who's the one that needs to do the work most of all? Usually it's self, because whatever I see in my neighbor, I wouldn't see unless it was in myself. So when we're exploring this powerful thing called life, to go back to you, Rob, as our special guest in conversation today, first, thank you so much for coming and sharing who you are as a young man and how you've grown into a leader in your own community. I think you've been in Kingston, Ontario, again, one of the original capital cities of Canada, for about 22 years now. And so you've lived And you've blessed us with two beautiful grandchildren who
Mm.
somehow have become early adults now. And I don't know how come they keep getting older because I keep getting younger. And so when we can begin to see the humor in life, I think children and grandchildren help us to keep young. And also, when we look at life, there's so many children on the planet now that need good homes. This wonderful thing about adopting and bringing other children from other cultures into our own homes to again give them the nurturing and the love and the family life that they need that they might have never experienced because our world certainly is out of balance right now. So you spoke a little bit about the out of balance, Rob. How do you see in your recent run as a counselor in there how the balance is beginning to become more balanced even around a council table in democracy? Because you know, democracy can only be as healthy as we the people make it. And I know we've got elections coming up in the States. We've got always constant elections going on here in Canada. How do you see this new light coming through and different progressive voices, people that see the world differently, more and more of them getting elected now? Does that inspire you to have great hope that will have conservatives and liberals and all these different labels begin to work together around a council table to deal with some of the significant issues in our cities in Canada right now?
Hope springs eternal, absolutely. And there's a lot of good things happening in the world. Unfortunately, that is not always portrayed in the media because the powers that be like to keep people in fear and loathing of each other rather than focus on the good things, unfortunately. But yes, there are a lot of good people that got elected here in Kingston, and I think that there are some really the biggest hope I see is in the youth actually that are getting more active and engaged in their own futures and taking responsibility for their decisions and the world around them and the things that'll impact them. So yeah, there's a lot of good things happening, and I'm very hopeful for the future as a result. But we all have to just focus on those good things and move forward together.
Well, thank you, Robert. And I would just share with many of you, many years ago, I was having a conversation with a wisdom elder from the States who was doing kids camps, of which I was aspiring to do the same thing for our grandchildren, in which we had elders teaching the wisdoms of being in a circle and having conversations and communication to share common concerns so we all find our voices in a good way. And this was a camp that I was envisioning creating in Gatineau, Ottawa. And we were talking about the prophecies of Indigenous people that there would come a time where there would be great change on Mother Earth, and that Canadians and people of all nationalities would really have to start to work together. And so I asked for his wisdom. What should I do when we go through these times of great change? And he said, always don't bother looking out the window because there'll be trees dying, leaves falling off, there will be floods. And don't get too engaged in the news. Stay within your house, stay within the core of your own heart, and begin to vision the better world that's going to be replacing the old one that isn't healthy anyway. And so always believe in the wisdom and the goodness of each person's heart and surround yourself with good people, and goodness will begin to flow. Now, that was many years ago when our grandchildren were aged 3 and 5. And now they're 22 and 24, is it, Rob? I always get the dates mixed up because I keep getting older. But now, after all these decades, I think we're beginning to see the prophecy coming through, that these are times of great challenge and turmoil. We've seen them happening in the last couple of years, but we're still here as one human family, working together to bring forth good things for all future generations. And I love the words of wisdom around listen to the children because they know they're beautiful souls here to remind us of how important we all are. And we are very blessed to have the children and the young ones of all ages and you young adults here today, because it's you that are going to help me find my voice in a good way to give you great hope. Because if I can live to 100 and more, so can you. And we all have a vested interest in embracing the polarities that are happening and bringing them together in balance now. That's called wisdom and wellness and well-being. Not to get engaged in the outside affairs of the world too much, but in a good way to trust good things are flowing. So Halloween 2022 is a good time to remind ourselves that a new year is fast approaching. And the New Year theme for the wonderful themes that the Unity Church brings us on our monthly calendars that we're using for discussing is a theme that is very, very powerful. And I'm not sure if I had sent it to you, but I think I did mention it to Joey that the year and the theme for the new year in 2023 is a year of grace and gratitude. Now, that's a powerful word, grace. So every day when we see amongst all the trials and tribulations we've gone through, we're getting more resilient and courageous, and we're building strong spiritual roots that we know we will not be blown over in the winds of change, but like a tree, we're going to be centered. We're going to be caring for ourselves, and the better we care for ourselves, the better we care for each other, and the better we care for the earth, which is our one home. So Kim, can you build on that? And again, do we have a timekeeper today? Because I know we want to keep our conversations to about an hour.
I've been keeping an eye on the clock because I think I'm the one that has to scoot out at 3:15 Eastern. So yeah, I think we'll be good. And I have a little alarm set on my phone to remind me. So we will be good. We'll be good. So Judith, yeah, I love this word grace. And just to speak into, sharing my experience with the babysitter, I realized upon looking at the situation, just as I think it was Joey that was saying earlier today in our call, is that this experience came about for us. Because in the beginning, I was like, why is this happening? Like, why, like, what's going on with this relationship and how is this possible? And I had a lot of shame because of course I'm thinking, am I really that bad of a parent? Like, are we really like making mistakes here? Like, what's going on? So, and then I didn't want to tell anyone because I was ashamed of like, oh, we had this lady come to our house, like, so that all these emotions were happening. And as I was processing it, like later on, I realized, well, the reason that we have our belief as to why we feel that this occurred so that we could have an opportunity to step up in our leadership as parents, because we were being so wishy-washy. We were like, well, she says that this is better for her, so I guess, yeah, sure, it's better for her to eat this food or to look that way or to do this thing. Like, we were allowing it to happen because we're new parents, so we didn't know any better, and we were like, oh, okay, I guess, she has a son, she has more years on us, like, I guess she knows, right? But the whole time we had been questioning, like, well, I don't think it's a big deal for her to eat a sandwich like that, and different things. And afterward, the relief, we didn't, like, there was no stress anymore because we had made the decision that we had been feeling we had to make, but we didn't want to because we were afraid. We were afraid of hurting feelings. We were afraid of stepping on toes. We were just afraid to take that step because we knew it was going to be hard. But once we took the step to say, yeah, it's us. We get to be the parents, not you. There was so much relief. We weren't stressed out anymore, and everything seemed to just fall into place, and another care provider was available. Like, it all just flowed. And so we were able to have grace in that moment because we realized, okay, this was a calling for us. We were being called forward to trust ourselves, trust what we were being intuitively guided to want to do and how we wanted to raise her. So we were called to become like bigger, better parents in a way. We were just called to go within and accept the truth that was already in our souls. We were just doubting. We were just doubting it. And now we get to like fully step in and be like, no, it's us. We get to make this decision. So I'm not trying to ramble here, but I mean, it was just hearing you speak about grace and that this was for us. You know, it was really, really powerful to walk through that experience. We didn't like it. It was challenging and it was hard. But I mean, walking through the other side, like we're so much better now. We're so much better now. It's incredible.
Powerful learning, eh?
Yeah, it was so powerful.
Life experiences are our greatest teachers, and no one gives a book on parenting. That's why being human is so difficult. We're all doing the best we can, and that's good enough as long as it's the best we can. So every generation, okay, we're the product of the generation before. And so every generation that heals and begins to have conversations that are meaningful in authentic dialogue, we get better at communication, which is the essence of good relationship. And most of us don't come from having the privilege of having parents that were doing the best they can. Nobody knew how to parent. Who gives us a book? So we're just kind of repeating our parents' way. And if we're really lucky, we meet a partner, and our partner's way and our way, we mold together a new way. So every generation aspires to get a little bit better at parenting because we're learning. We're students and teachers on the path of life to learn how to get better at being human beings. And one of my indigenous friends said many years ago something that was a real keeper. And she said, you know, being human is really hard. And it is, because we're so hard on ourselves. And I think judgment is a really strong thing in the Western world, where no matter what we do, it's never good enough as a young child. So right from an early age, whatever we're doing, we're told to do something different. So by the time we get to 12, we lose our spirit of being creators, of using the passion that's in our heart to bring forth a new game, a different way of seeing, creating something beautiful. And I think we're living in a time now, a new era, where the medicine wheel of indigenous spirituality, of going back to the roots of original people, where they simply were in community in a good way, where the grandmothers and the clan mothers, they held the community together. They cared for the children. They nurtured the emotional body of the community. That was a form of democracy. And the men were responsible for protecting that community, but they were also responsible for caring for themselves and their women in a good way, that they all worked together. But the people in the community that had the wisdom were the grandmothers and the grandmothers that said to the men, you never go and make war unless you check it out with us first. And that's how democracy, once upon a time, long, long ago, was very simple. Now we're living in a Western world and a Western way of being, where everything is from the head. You're either for us or you're against us. So we're living in this polarity time. So we have to awaken now to the times that are significant to, as you say, Kim, and all of us are saying today, we've got to listen to our own hearts. If something doesn't sit well, we're getting a message from our own inner knowing that we can do things in a new way and it's okay. And if somebody judges us, that's too bad, so sad, but that's just too bad. And so moving forward, Joey sees a lot of people, and we're all learning, how do we all create better boundaries? So our homes are our sacred space, so that we can nurture our own souls and our own families, so we can see the outside affairs in the world don't really concern us as much as how do we care for each other and ourselves. And then that extension goes out into the community in a better way. So Joey, would we like to add to this? Because I think we're going to be coming to an end fairly soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes to what's on the Udway Wellness Learning Center front page, is linking hearts and minds. Really love that statement. And I think that's what these oneness calls are about, is the heart separately and the mind separately both have their own powers, but they're more, it's kind of tenfold power when you put them both together, allow them to cross communicate and then exchange that with other people. So that's what I find myself is our time is one of our most valuable resources, and it's non-renewable. So how we choose to spend that time is really important. And it is a choice. It's a choice to do that work with one another. And so I personally choose to do that with people who are like-minded and like-hearted, and see that as being important to have that integration of the two. Because I think we're more well-rounded beings, being able to pull from multiple intelligences that are within us and outside of us. So I always appreciate these conversations. And yeah, and Rob wanted to include you in on it too. I was really curious when you were talking about the youth. Question that came up for me is kind of what were some surprising things that I guess that you saw that the youth are doing, I guess maybe in the political realm or in your community in general, that may have surprised you on your journey of doing politician things. Sorry, I don't have the proper vernacular, but you know what I mean?
That's a good question, Joey. I find that youth are more awake and aware of their existence than a lot of adults are in many ways. So I find maybe because a lot of them have become, unfortunately, in our society, latchkey kids, for lack of a better word, they've been left to discover their own reality in a lot of ways in that respect, right? So they've taken information from various sources, not just their parents or the religious, leaders that of old, but they've taken information from a multitude of sources to create their own perspectives and identities and realities. So I think it's quite interesting to see a lot of them growing in that respect. So there are some downsides to it, obviously, as well. That I see a lot of youth that are lost, but the ones that aren't are the ones that we really have to focus on and try to allow them to make their way forward and their voices heard more. And I see them getting more actively engaged in their communities and politics. And unfortunately, though, the downside to that is there are a lot of youth that are kind of lost boys or lost girls or whatever. And they've gotten apathetic and angry, and because the existence that we have right now, for a lot of them, they can't even hope to leave home at this stage because the rents are too high. The housing costs are soaring. So to buy a house right now, you'd have to be a multimillionaire already almost to buy a house. So the future that we've created for them from generations past to now, it's not very nice. That said, the ones that, are active and positive and getting connected with their minds as well as their hearts are the ones that I really am hopeful for that will change our world for the better. And they seem to be the more than the opposite, which is what I like to see. And so I hope that answers your questions in a way.
It's an excellent question because I think it's a concern for many people. As we look at the future generations, what are we leaving as our legacy for them? And so I often look at my age group, being born just after World War II, the character that people developed in going through wars and building a strong society when we didn't even have homes when people came back from the war. So it's kind of like we've come full circle. And I think governments did a great job back in those days where they actually honored war veterans coming home and built houses so they could purchase houses on DVA grants in Canada so that the veterans that came home had a place to live. Well, come full circle, now we have a growing homeless situation in our so-called richest cultures on the planet, which to me is just a sign of a tremendous imbalance based on greed, where there's never enough, a mindset that no matter how much I have, it's never enough. That's a form of dis-ease. Otherwise, it's imbalance. And so when we lose our ability as a humanity to care for each other in a way that's healthy and whole, we risk losing our own human dignity and ability to live from care, love, and compassion. So what the First Nations people are talking about is exactly what I think many of us need to have our souls fed. And that is we can slowly let go of the conditioning that we need all this stuff that's filling up the landfills and the garbage sites of all our major cities. And we need to be, as the human being, more humane to each other and begin to see that money is not everything. money does not feed you. Oil you cannot drink. We have to get back to the basics with climate change of empowering the young people to have hope is probably with people like you, Rob, as a community leader, perhaps doing something in your community so that the young ones can have a circle of conversations to inspire hope in each other, and then go out into their schools and their CEGEPs and their colleges, and again, create circles of inspiring each other to make the change we all need to make, and that is use less. We don't need to use all this stuff. And I think what we're beginning to see is we're in this transitionary period all over the planet right now, where we're beginning to get a clearer idea of who we want to be and how we want to work together, and stop the fighting, but start working together as one. And so thanks, Kim, for putting on our website all the conversations that up till now, and the ones that we'll be recording and putting up today. And I think Isabel and Rob, if you'd like to come again, we'd love to have you as part of the conversation. And your feedback is really important. We hope that it's inspired you to listen in today and has given you some food for thought and food for your own soul in your journeys forward. As young adults, we all make a difference, no matter our ages. So Kim, any closing words?
Just that I have so much gratitude for you guys, for this group, for our ability to come together, if not in person, then through this virtual platform where we have the opportunity to just be still, right? Like the saying, be still and know, right? Be still and know thyself, be still and know God, be still, just be still. And through that process, we get to let go and let source take over. We get to be in the flow. We get to trust our intuition. All it takes is just be still. Just be still. So that's my closing. That's my closing statement. Just be still. You'll be blessed.
Beautiful. Joey.
Yeah, same feeling. It's always lovely to be on here. It feels so relaxing and comfortable, and able to be vulnerable. Realized recently through the troubles of the last couple of months of the different relationships is I feel like one of my superpowers is willing to be vulnerable, as well as to be able to hold space when other people are feeling vulnerable. And I think it's something I've seen with myself over the last few years, but didn't really recognize it until this occurred with some specific scenarios. So I think it's really important, whatever your superpower is, like tap into that and become more aware of it, and make it more powerful. So love being here with y'all. Logistic wise, we will be back November 21st. Next month's theme will be Give Thanks. And you can always check us out for the schedule at outawaywellnesslearning.com. That's OUTAOUAIS wellnesslearning.com. And then Rob, as well, did you have ways that people could connect with you online or follow the work that you do at all?
Absolutely, and thank you for that. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Rob Matheson, so feel free to connect with me on Facebook. I do have a Twitter account as well that I just set up during the election. Mind you, I don't like Twitter, especially now that Elon Musk holds it, but we'll see how that all plays out. So yeah, we're by email, robdmatheson@gmail.com. So thank you for that. And yeah, it's been a blessing being here, and thank you all for the experience.
Rob, could you say that more slowly? That went over my head.
What, the last part?
Yeah.
Oh, my email address is robdmatheson@gmail.com.
Okay. You know, I should know it by now, but what's your D stand for, Rob?
D for Dawson, my grandfather.
Thank you for remembering that, because I think the grandparents that are passed on in spirit right now, all of our ancestors, are applauding us and cheering us on. And I would really welcome Isabel, if you care to say one last word and what you came out of today's program with by blessing us with your presence. How would you say this has been for you and your beautiful heart and soul today?
It's been a message of hope. It's just been really nice to connect with like-minded people, and I really loved that story you shared about not looking out the window when there's a lot of leaves falling. And I mean, it's so appropriate, literally and figuratively, right now, this time of year, and with what's going on, and just focusing on self-care and connecting and loving what is, and loving, all the blessings and the people we have around us. So yeah, very hopeful.
And might I ask what part of Canada you're blessed to live?
In Quebec.
Hallelujah.
Not far. Yeah.
So you're in the same region of the Outaouais, or are you in Montreal? Or
Montreal area.
beautiful. I have so many beautiful friends in Montreal, including Marilyn Rosner. Have you ever heard of her?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
She's on
yes.
one of our conversations on the website.
Well, I'll be checking it out. I'm glad I took everything down, and I'm looking forward to browsing and discovering.
And I look forward to you carrying the journey along with us any month you feel compelled to listen in. And on December, we're going to have a theme called Let Us Rejoice. So we're going to end today, let go and let God, and let's all rejoice. We're meeting as oneness now. And thank you, Rob, for being our special guest. It was a pleasure to have you as a mother. That's very proud, and I deserve to be. So bless you all and have a great month, and talk to you later. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.